Welcome to From a Southside Point of View. I'm here, Chorizy E, as always, with my co-host here, Josh Nelson of Sox Machine. Josh, what's up, man?
I'm doing well. I enjoyed episode 3, not as much as episode 2. But Chorizy, I think we finally have our big bad in this show.
I'm not sure, but we will get to that. You know, conspiracy theories abound for me. I'll say that much. This episode kind of created more questions in my mind than it did answer anything for me. But what I want to start off with is a quick question for you: Is who was your favorite cameo? So we got Stephen Root, Danny Trejo, and Phil Lamar. For those of you who don't know Phil Lamar, I've got him there on the far end. He was in Pulp Fiction. He was Marvin. He doesn't have a head the whole movie, but he's also done a ton of voices on Star Wars shows. So he's been Pikes in the past, and now you're getting him kind of live action as the voice of the Pike leader. I believe he's actually in the costume, but
Wow.
I'd have to double check that. I don't know that for sure, but it's definitely his voice. So who is your favorite cameo of the three?
It's really between Steven and Danny. And I think I'm going to go with Danny because with the gift, the Rancor, and him being a Rancor trainer, that's pretty badass. And I kind of like the similarities in the way that Danny was explaining the behaviors of a Rancor, very much like training a pit bull. A lot of people are afraid of pit bulls. And unfortunately, if you have a poorly trained pit bull, it can be a dangerous dog. It just doesn't know what to do in social situations or how to behave. And they're often bred for fighting. And it's a terrible thing. However, if you get a pit bull and you go through the training classes and you take great care of it and you socialize them early, they're some of the best dogs you can ever have. And I like this similarity that they're doing with the Rancor. All we know from Rancors is that they eat whatever is in front of them, especially Return of the Jedi. They have problems with chicken bones. Uh, and, they're just these ruthless creatures. And we also saw Rancor, I believe, was it in Bad Batch? Yeah, it was Bad Batch.
It was in Bad Batch, yeah. And I'm a little disappointed it's not the same Rancor because I predicted that. So we got a Rancor, but we did not get Moochie.
We did not get Moochie. However, I I think you could agree with this. I am hoping we do get Boba Fett riding a Rancor into battle, because
absolutely,
that's got to be one of the most badass images right now in my head in the Star Wars universe. But the way that Danny was explaining it, I thought that scene was absolutely terrific when he is walking up, or I guess trailing the Rancor up. I just knew, he's not here for a quick cameo. He's going to be sticking around. So I'm pretty pumped.
I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't predict Danny Trejo being in this show. Since
it's Robert Rodriguez.
It's Robert Rodriguez. Of course, Danny Trejo is going to be in there, and of course, he's awesome. I thought that was a really cool scene. I have to take Danny Trejo too, otherwise I can't be Mexican anymore. But I will say that I did enjoy Stephen Root quite a bit, and we're going to get into him in a little bit. But yeah, the Danny Trejo scene is fantastic, and I think like bringing the Rancor in, and there's a quick call out in that scene back to the Star Wars holiday special, where because Boba Fett makes the mention of, I've ridden beasts 10 times this size, which we've never seen, except he rides like this big dinosaur thing in the cartoon in the holiday special. It's totally ridiculous.
I didn't think about that.
I did not grab a screen cap of that, but as I was telling Josh, I did grab some screen caps from the show that I'll be putting up during this. And so between my new audio setup today and me grabbing a bunch of things from Disney properties, this is not. I hope you're watching this live because it's not going to be up long. Like there's no way that this episode survives very long. But so I think those cameos were fun. I think it's cool to see a
Mhm.
lot of these guys getting brought back that I think all of us really like. I think everyone loves Milton from The Office. It's a great
Mhm.
character. Danny Trejo, obviously, and Phil LaMarr has voiced a ton of characters that you're probably not even aware of. I go to his IMDb page. It's worth a Google. So that's a lot of fun. Let's go to something that is not fun at all. The Tuscans
Yeah.
are no more. I mean, I'm sure there's other tribes of Tuscans, but this tribe is apparently gone. I think one thing that we've heard a little bit is, we didn't see the kid's body, so maybe he's alive. Guys, this is Disney. Like, they're not going to show a charred child, right? The stick was your indication that he's gone too. So, uh, I want to know what you thought about that, but I also want to know, who do you think was behind this? Because we have the meeting with the Pike leader, and he
Yes.
mentions the Kenton Striders. The, as I got on the screen here, the symbol that they show and the symbol that's written where all the Tuscans are murdered is the Huttese K. Obviously, for Kenton Striders, it all kind of packages up very easy to say, you encroached on their territory, you went and beat them up in the bar. This is the payback. But do you think it was the Kenton Striders?
Yes, I do. However, I think they are paid by the Pikes to take out the Tuscan Raiders. And we talked about this in the last episode. You do not mess with the Pikes and be able to walk away from it often, unless you are a Jedi or an elite bounty hunter. You can't cross the Pikes. You can't wreck their train and be able to live the tale. And what I think happened is that they received the message from Boba Fett that Boba Fett wants to talk about paying this toll for their spice train. And while he's en route, the Pikes planned on the Striders to find the Tuscan Raiders and eliminate them, because if Boba Fett is there, they are a formidable foe, and you're probably not going to survive because they took out our train. However, if we remove Boba Fett, they become much weaker. So while he's talking to us, you go eliminate the natives, and when Boba Fett returns to camp, he's going to see it gone, and we're going to continue with our activity as far as with our spice train. So I think the Pikes are 100% behind the attack on the Tuscan Raiders, and in a way double cross Boba Fett, because
Mhm.
this is what the Pikes do.
Yeah, and this is a good scenario of, like, they're putting something very plainly in front of you of, this is who did this, but it's not really who did this, right? Like, you're really seeing something uh different in what the true villain here would be. And so I think that's something that's interesting throughout this episode. And you mentioned them wanting Boba Fett not there, which is a key piece of this, because Boba Fett, and this is not much in the books or comics, things like that, but, like, it's been alluded to that Jango Fett was like this strategy master, and that's part of why they used his DNA for everybody, right? That's why they made clones of Jango Fett, because his strategies were so good, and you see it come to life in Bad Batch when Omega is just suddenly incredible at, like, their whatever that chess game is that they play with the little walking
Mhm.
animals. So you remove him from that, and then you sneak attack the Tuscans, and they just had no chance.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great observation of, like, the removal of him and then taking them out was just all Pike planning. That's just, like, that's how they operate. And speaking of underground kind of dark operations, Stephen Root shows up at the beginning of this show as a watermongerer, and I think this is kind of the first test that we see in this episode. I think this episode has a lot of kind of tests for different characters throughout, And so this is the kind of the first one we see for Boba Fett, where a guy comes in who is price gouging insanely on water, which is one of the most valuable resources that we're going to have in this show. Um, and he's like, "Hey, come help me out with this problem I've got," and then basically you're in on the business, right? This would be part of yours. This is something that Jabba would be all over. Jabba would go kill whoever it is and let this price gouging go on, as long as he's getting his piece, right? Like, so he brings him in. What did you think about the way that Boba Fett handled this, and what this is going to mean for him kind of going forward with the way that he handled the what I saw this on Twitter, Josh, and I'm using it. It's Mos Vespa, that the street gang. I'm sticking out. It's not mine. I didn't come up with that. I'm using it. I'm stealing.
It's great. I love the Mos Vespa. I love everyone's just calling it the Vespa gang. Like, first of all, look at these Vespas. They're so colorful. We're not used to seeing this type of color in Tatooine. Oh man, how do they keep them so clean?
That's the thing.
So sandy.
That's why they're spending so much on water. They wash those things every day, man.
So I'm going to answer your question with the question. Do you think it was Boba Fett's strategy all along to recruit the gang to work for him? Or do you think it was something that he thought of on the spot when he met them?
It felt like it was on the spot. It felt like, I think there was, he had when Stephen Root's character, and I don't know his name, so I'm just going to keep calling him Stephen Root because I love the guy, and
it's Stephen Root. Yeah.
And it's basically the same character he plays in Barry. Like, he's just the same guy. But so when he mentions, I would double my tribute to you, Boba Fett has a look on his face of interest. But I think it's not simply of like, ooh, money. It's like, how could this guy afford to double his tribute to me? What's going on here? And so he goes there to figure that out. And I mean, like, if he was going to go take those guys out, I mean, he's Boba Fett. Him and Fennec could have taken those 4 out in like 30 seconds. But they didn't. So he was definitely going there to gather information. And then you see it when he tries to pay off the watermonger. He offers him 500 credits, which is apparently fair market for water these days. I don't know how much water costs on Tatooine. But he changes his price. He first says that they owe him 1,500. Then he says that he owes them 1,300. And Boba Fett just kind of sticks to the 500. It's almost like the negotiation in Bad Santa, where he just keeps saying half until he just gives up. And so I think that he was kind of figuring out that situation in the moment and saw an opportunity. And good thing he did, because I feel like he needed a little bit of help a little bit later in the episode, not too long later in the episode.
And this game is really unique in which they are purposely modifying their bodies. Like, they are purposely making themselves cyborgs. Like, we know, like, Anakin before Darth Vader was part machine. We know Luke Skywalker is part machine, getting his hand cut off. But they had body parts cut off on them. It wasn't necessarily a choice to be part machine. Fennec is part machine with her torso. This game is purposely deciding to be cyborgs, and that's unique.
So, I've got a lot of conspiracy theories throughout this show, but like in the books, there are sects of people that kind of worship Darth Vader, or at least follow in his footsteps. And like, part of me is like, the whole more machine than man thing that they say about Vader kind of comes back in this when Stephen Root's talking. Like, it feels like there might be some people that are just like, Darth Vader was badass and I want to be like that. And you see these guys kind of updating their bodies. The fact that Sophie Turner, we didn't get to see her arm get chopped off. By the way, Sophie Turner's in the show. I was wrong.
Yes.
We didn't get to see her arm get chopped off, which is, man, like one of my favorite parts of Star Wars is arms getting chopped off. So that's a little disappointing. But maybe we'll get a flash. But maybe she'll get in the back to tank. In fact, we'll get to this in a minute. But there's a back to tank thing that I want to talk about in a few minutes. But I think it is cool that they're kind of like this group that's modifying their body parts, and they're going to have kind of like a Mandalorian style, like I have these cool weapons you've never seen type of thing going on, even though he's really the only Mandalorian in the show that we've seen. So I think that could be pretty cool. I want to touch on one other thing with Stephen Root's character when he's in the palace and he's talking to them. He starts to tell about Tatooine once being covered in water.
Yes.
This is something that like they've alluded to multiple times now. They cut him off because obviously they can't give away whatever this is. But Josh, here's my other conspiracy theory. The main thing that all of this is about is the water on Tatooine. And so I think the Pikes have access to water. It's almost like a Mad Max thing where there is like an aquifer or something that they are aware of, and they're trying to control it, and they're trying to sell it at the, whatever prices they want. But much like spice, it's a rare kind of it's a rare resource, and that people really want. And so they have the perfect operation already to try and sell this. And it goes back to my earlier thought that there's spice on Tatooine, and that's why they were there. I could imagine them mining for spice and going like, "Hey, boss, look at this. There's a lake over here." You're underground and you find it. Because like, what else? There has to be, right? Like, because how else does moisture farming work if like, there's not moisture somewhere, right? Like, they have to have found it. How do you have a train car full of water on Tatooine if you didn't find this? So like, I think that's something that I want to keep an eye on in this show.
Well, you have moisture farmers, right?
You do, right? And so that moisture is coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so is there like an underground kind of water source that the Pikes have found, and that's their kind of what they're selling here?
I mean, I wonder. See, this is where I'm terrible when it comes to just like weather and the changes of a planet and the multiple sciences that are involved. Because like in real life on Earth, you have the Sahara Desert, right? Was the Sahara Desert ever not a desert or a wasteland?
Well, so wow, we're really getting into the conspiracy theories here now.
Yeah.
So there's some theories that I want to say it's the Sahara, that it used to be there used to be a lot of water there, and that's actually where the lost city of Atlantis is. We're getting way off base here, but that's so yeah. I believe that there was water there at some point in history, or it was at least lush at some point in history.
Yeah. Yeah, and how long ago was it that Tatooine was covered in water?
They keep cutting people off who want to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, were people alive?
There had to be, right? Like, because the Tuskens stay. The Tuskens stay. Like the chief mentions that the Tuskens stayed in the desert after this occurred. And then we think we're going to get a little more, but instead we start snorting lizards, and like it goes off in a different direction. So we still don't know why. We still don't know what happened, where the water might be, any of these things.
So another conspiracy theory to throw at you, and you can reject it if you want. Was there a similar Operation Cinder that happened on Tatooine?
See, that's a possibility there. Like so if you're not familiar with Operation Cinder is what the Emperor puts into effect after his death, right? This is kind of like it's It's basically like the Empire failed, so just blow it up, in the simplest terms. And so a lot of planets just get devastated in this. And there's like these satellites that are all ready to go and like blow up these planets, or just devastate them completely. Yeah, I mean, it could have been a war. It could be, Matrix style, scorch the skies type thing, or maybe they did something that ignited a star to become like another sun on the planet, and then like dried it out, right? I mean, like there's a multitude of options there, but I agree. Yeah, like it could very much be something that people or beings that live there forced upon themselves by either war or intentional destruction to that planet.
So is it possible then, back to your conspiracy theory, that the Pikes not only are mining spice on Tatooine, but they are also hoarding all of the water? And Stephen Root's character, which, by the way, looking at IMDb, his name is Lortha Peel.
Ooh, that's a good one.
If Lortha Peel, while he promises to pay tribute to Boba Fett, because the Pikes don't care about small dealings within the city, that's way below them.
Yeah.
That the watermongers like Lortha Peel ultimately are working for the Pikes.
Yeah, they're the street dealer, right? Like they're the street level dealers out there. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if, Lortha was trying to get the Vespa gang to be his people to go sell some water,
And they refused.
and they stole from him instead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll take some of this water and we're just gonna keep it. We're gonna wash our Vespas with it.
So now imagining Stephen Root as a street level drug dealer.
I mean, you always want, like, if Milton wasn't gonna burn down the office and office space and go retire to a beautiful community out on an island, like street level drug dealer is what I was hoping for out of Milton.
This is great.
Slanging red staplers on the side of the road.
Now I want this to happen. I want this to be true.
So if we're looking at the order of the show, like, so what happened? This all happened kind of up front. Him with Stephen Root, and he takes in the Mos Vespa gang, and then it's time for some Bacta. He's a big Bacta guy. He's like, the tank is his domain, and that's where we get the previous scene we talked about, which is the Tuskens dying. But that dream is cut short because Black Chrysanthemum shows up, and they have quite a duel, and they are going at it. If you guys rewatch it, when he's getting his back kind of like broken by Black Chrysanthemum, his toe curls up. It is the grossest thing I've ever seen. I don't know how they did that. Like, I think Tamira might be able to just do that with his toe, which is weird. But it was a great fight. But Josh, here's part of this for me. There's a few things that are kind of wrong here, and I don't think they're plot holes. One, think of Goodfellas, right? When the cops swarm on Henry, and he's like, I knew it wasn't the mob, because I would have never hurt him. I would have just been dead. He is asleep. Black Chrysanthemum is standing over him. Black Chrysanthemum could just murder him in his sleep. Yeah. Chooses to drag him out and fight him.
The show's over. Boop.
Right. I mean, like, obviously you're not going to do that, but at the same time, it feels like it's the Hutts testing out Boba Fett. Like, can you handle this? Can your crew handle this? Speaking of his crew, so I'm going to ask you a few questions here. One, do you think it was a test from the Hutts to see what Boba's made of? Two, where the heck was Fennec? And three, who let Black Chrysanthemum in?
Yeah, that damn droid.
Right.
Who's worthless.
Matthew Berry felt like the absolute 88. Felt like the absolute person that would be like, I'm tired of this guy. He won't let me torture anybody. Yeah, go ahead. Go kill him.
Yeah, he's not listening to my advice. Sure. Walk right in. Uh, I think everyone's asleep. And then everyone is dressed to fight, which is amazing, except for Boba Fett. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess Black Chrysanthemum could have just shot Boba Fett in the face, just open up the pod, boop, and then it's over. And then he gets this money from the Hutts, and the twins then they take over. And I think we should talk about that in a moment.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely, definitely.
but I guess I don't know what Chrysanthemum's strategy was, just to beat the living crap out of Boba Fett or beat him to death. Uh, Wookiee hug him to death, maybe was the strategy of killing him. Pretty interesting as far as fight techniques. But this is what happens in movies and TV shows for the most part, is that you just don't get that simple kill shot like you would in real life. I imagine with a real life hitman or a real life assassin that they wouldn't even think twice to just shoot you in the head and it's over. They go collect their money. But that doesn't happen because it doesn't build up suspense and, this one-on-one duel, this fight. And then, of course, the Vespa gang comes and saves Boba Fett. So, yeah, you bring up a good point that I'm not exactly sure what Black Chrysanthemum's goal was there. I mean, if he's
I,
truly to kill Boba Fett, then he
you,
should have just killed him.
I think too the thing that they don't make obvious here, and that is obvious in the books and comics, is that Black Chrysanthemum and Boba Fett know each other, have worked together,
Right.
have both worked for Darth Vader. They know they are like in the time before Darth Vader dying. They are the two top bounty hunters. So it's possible this was just a respect thing of like, I'm not going to just take you out the easy way. I'm going to give you a chance. Like, it's kind of like, I could just kill you right now, but I've got enough respect for you. We're going to fight this out. Now, Black Chrysanthemum is a gladiator. He probably figures I've got this anyways. He's not counting on the modded out mods to come in and like be a part of this. But yeah, I think that could be it. Maybe.
I like that idea. I also like the conspiracy theory that Chicago Fan 76 put in the comment section that Fennec possibly let Black Chrysanthemum in.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
So I was thinking about that, and I don't even know if if Fennec is actually against Boba Fett, or if this is truly much like I was talking about the Hutts testing him. Fennec going like, is this guy healthy? Can this guy do it?
Right.
Or should I just take off? Right? Like what do we got here? And if Fennec owes him a life debt, the only way she's taken off is if he's dead. So I don't know. I like that theory, and I kind of am looking at Fennec quite a bit in this episode, going like, whose side are you on? What are you trying to do? Because let's get into the aftermath of the fight. She's kind of like, let's just have this big feast. Who cares? Which is a strange, to me, very strange that she would have that kind of attitude right after the fight. So my mistrust is building for Fennec. I don't know, Josh. How about yours?
Yeah, the feast was odd. And now that you mention it, I'm kind of liking this conspiracy theory. Fennec possibly backstabbing Boba Fett because she works alone. And I wonder if this is a very odd arrangement for her. Huh. Maybe the food was poisoned, and that was another way Fennec was going to take out Boba Fett.
Oh man, that would be some weak Games of Thrones stuff, man.
Well, he doesn't want to eat.
He can't die like that for me. Like, I mean, I'd rather Black Chrysanthemum take the big like Wookiee crossbow and take him out in the head than him like choke to death or something. That'd be sad.
Now this is fascinating. Now I can't wait for the next episode to see if this becomes true. If maybe Fennec realizes in her daily patrols of the city that the Pikes get to her first, and they make her a deal that she can't refuse, but she can't make it seem like she's totally against Boba Fett.
Right.
This is interesting.
Yeah, and who knows,
Hmm.
who knows who she's been working for in the past. There's not a lot of information about her. There's not a lot of background that we get on Fennec. So it's 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 definitely one of the many questions that has come up in this episode. At the, again, at the aftermath of this, she's saying let's wait and see what happens, and then moments later we get the Hutts who show up. And man, I keep thinking about this poor guy at the bottom here. I mean, he's struggling, man. And like, you got these two giant Hutts, and they're both on this platform that these guys have to carry. Josh, let me ask you a question real quick, and this is not a serious question, but you're one of those guys. You're one of those guys holding that up. You're trying to, not buckle at every part of your body. And then you see the Rancor roll up on this like motorized thing, and Danny Trejo's just kind of like leaned back, rolling down the street with the whole Rancor, and you're like, we couldn't get one of these. I would drive this. I can't stop thinking about like those poor guys, like all of it, and I keep thinking, and we were talking about this on Twitter last night, of me and a couple other people, about like when one of them falls, like everything's gonna collapse. So like we're just kind of waiting for Fennec to like just kick out someone's knee or something, or like or something to happen where like one collapse. Like, but I'm worried about that. Not for the Hutts. I don't care about them, and I hope they fall on the ground. But there's people underneath that, man. Like they're done. They're done. You can't survive a platform of Hutts falling on you. You just can't.
What a way to die.
Oh my God. So I'm a little worried about them. I'm a little worried about them. That I think they're the true heroes of this story, and we're not talking enough about them.
Getting crushed to death by a 1,000-pound slug. Yes, that would be one of the worst ways to go. One thing that I thought of is this litter crew that's carrying the twins. Maybe it's in order of how much debt that they owe to the twins, and that guy owes the second most. The guy that owes the most is clearly the one that's in the middle, but in the back. That's only seeing the backs of the twins. That guy owes the most credits to the twins. They have the worst job.
Yeah, the wash off of the platform from there has got to be, oh man, that's got to be undesirable at best.
The smell.
But so the Hutts show up, and I mean, I can't get enough of these two, because they are just to steal a line from Richard Pryor in Critical Condition. They have a serious case of full of shitness. Like and even when they're honest, it's like, why are you telling me this? Like they show up and they're like, hey, we sent Black Chrysanthemum to kill you, FYI. As if you didn't know, because he was with us 45 minutes ago, and then he was strangling you in your sleep. So they give you that piece of information, but then like everything else that they say, you take with an entire bag of salt, like, because you can't believe anything that they're saying, and they're like willing to give Black Chrysanthemum back to gladiators. They're just gonna leave because they're worried about the other group that's there. Like all these things just seem like they're just baiting Boba Fett into something. Like, here, go put your neck out on the line, because we want to clear out some of this rabble so that we have a chance at getting back in.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, but I could also see where the twins are not Jabba. Like, Jabba would fight. The twins have said multiple times that bloodshed and war is bad for business. So maybe they're going to act differently than their family member Jabba in handling the situation, and then realizing that their claim is no longer valid because of the Pikes. That's a fight that the twins do not want to have. And maybe you are right. With them stepping back, they are making the decision and perhaps betting on the Pikes eliminating Boba Fett. Boba Fett. And if that does happen, maybe the Pikes then will give the palace back to the twins, back to the Hutts to take over.
Yeah.
So, Bubba, here's this gift, a Rancor that we're hoping eats you. Maybe that's one way to eliminate you. If that does not work, then we are hoping the Pikes eliminate you. And then we are given the territory by those that are actually in power of Tatooine, the Pikes, and no one's going to challenge us.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the Rancor to me felt a little bit like
A Trojan horse.
you know what it felt like? It felt like if like, you know, someone was eyeing up your house to buy it, and they give you a housewarming gift, and they're like, "This will look good when I live here." You know, that's kind of like what they're doing there. Like, I mean, like, they're like, "Hey, could you put this Rancor downstairs because we're moving in like a month." But I think, yeah, I think there's some alignment between the Pikes and the Hutts, right? I think it's similar to when you had the Shadow Collective, which you might still have the Shadow Collective, in and there's these different crime organizations that have like this very fragile alliance. Yeah, it's mentioned in Solo when um yeah, I'm blanking on his name. Dryden Voss does not want to go attack the Pikes and steal from them because he has some kind of alliance with them, which is basically the Shadow Collective. They didn't want to give away Darth Maul at that point. So I think similar going on here, where you're kind of going, the Hutts don't want to fight because they're kind of in this alliance with the Pikes. So why fight them? So I think that there's some of that going on, and I think you're right. Like, they very much are like, go fight them, go ahead. And so when you die, I'll work here.
Yes.
Like,
yep.
So yeah, I agree. And so that brings me to a topic that I think you mentioned at the top, and I mentioned that I'm not so sure of. Are the Pikes the big bad of this show?
I think they are this show. However, my feelings have changed, Chorizy. I thought this is the end of Boba Fett. Like the Book of Boba Fett, we're going to be done with this character. Really not involved in the, let's just call it the new Star Wars verse that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are creating, because it sounds like Bo-Katan is getting her own show.
Oh, wow.
So we're really building up an Avengers style of storytelling with Star Wars content, which I am totally game for. The Pikes are the big bad in the Book of Boba Fett. However, everyone's working for someone, and I wonder if the Pikes are working for Grand Admiral Thrawn. Because in order for the Empire to come back, in order for Thrawn to come back, they're going to start up in the Outer Rim. And we already got that clue, like that seed was planted in season 2 of The Mandalorian. And that's how I'm feeling right now as far as the power structure. So we thought the mayor was going to be the big bad. It's not the big bad. We thought the twins could be possibly the big bad. It's not the twins, because the twins, I agree with you, have some type of deal with the Pikes. I think the Pikes are the big bad in this episode, but after this series, we're going to find out that the Pikes are even working for somebody else. And that somebody else, I think, is Grand Admiral Thrawn.
I like that. I like that theory a lot. And it kind of harkens back to the original Thrawn books, where I think it was Rook, the planet that Rook is from, that works with Thrawn, was like this totally devastated planet, and like they came kind of being like, we're going to be the saviors of your planet. They're also the ones that destroyed it, right? Like the Empire like was the ones that destroyed their planet and poisoned it purposely, and then they're like, now we're your saviors. And so to your earlier point about destroying Tatooine in some way, and now being a savior. I could see a similar kind of thing here. Um, I'm questioning how early we're going to find out if they're the big bad. I'm questioning how early we're going to see a war in this series. I'm guessing next episode or next chapter, I should say, they're going to create the alliance that Boba Fett's trying to put together, which is they mentioned at the beginning of this show kind of how everything was broken up under Bib, which is the Aqualish, which are like, so the Aqualish are the the guy that gets his arm, everything comes back to an arm getting cut off. The guy that gets his arm cut off in New Hope is Aqualish. So he's got like the kind of the things underneath his jowl there.
Yep.
And then I think it's the Trandoshans, which Bosk is a Trandoshan, and you've seen a lot of them. They're kind of lizard looking people. And then the Klartoonians, am I saying that right? I think the only place you've seen them previously, you've seen them in the trailers, but like I think the other place that they've shown them was and I might be wrong here, but I think in the Mandalorian, they're the ones attacking that kind of small town. I can't remember if that is the same group, but I'm pretty sure it is. So I think you'll see those three align in this next chapter. They're going to fight the Pikes to try and maintain their piece of all of this. And so I don't know how long that's going to go, because we've got, I think, 4 episodes left.
Yeah, it's a 7-chapter series. So we got
chapters,
3, right? No, you're right. 4. 4, 5, 6, 7.
So I'm interested to see how quickly these things all kind of roll out, or if we get a little more Fennec backstory. You know what? I do want to see if that little back to tank is just like a memory inducing storytelling thing, because I want to see some of the Gamorrean backstory because he's the one who gets thrown in the back to tank after the Black Chrysanthemum fight. Maybe we'll get a little info there. But like, I think that the Pikes, like I said, I think they have control of the water there, and I think I'd like to see what the aftermath of that looks like and who's upset about it. To your point, it could be Thrawn. It could be the Shadow Collective too, if that still exists, which could be Kira, could be Prince Shizor, could be Mark Krim. I don't know. Like, I don't know who's in charge of that now. So I think that like it leaves a lot of questions open of like who's going to be pissed when this happens.
You could have a scene in the next chapter of the Shadow Collective where the Pikes are obviously representing themselves and all of the guilds are representing themselves. And that's where you can get the Emilia Clarke cameo, right? She's there. She gets like 7 minutes of screen time. Everybody goes crazy and they're all representing their guilds. And someone's going to bring up, we're hearing that there's trouble at Tatooine. And maybe we get, where the Pikes say, we're going to take care of it. And that's the Shadow Collective acknowledging that Boba Fett has returned and Boba Fett is trying to lay claim on territory in Tatooine. So I think we can get that. And I guess in the stages, you would be right, because the Shadow Collective would have to give you permission to kill one of their own members. And the Hutts are part of that.
Right.
And Boba Fett, I don't think would have any interest in going to the Shadow Collective to get permission for anything. So maybe it is the Shadow Collective. The more I think about this, maybe you are right that there's an extra layer. Maybe it's the Shadow Collective that is working in conjunction with Grand Admiral Thrawn. So you get the Pikes, and if Boba Fett can fend them off, maybe it's then Boba Fett against the Shadow Collective, which then you're kind of getting into somewhat of a Punisher storyline where you have this one guy taking on, or even maybe like John Wick as well, if you want to use that universe, where it's one guy taking on an established crime organization and just continuing to climb the ladder.
And
I could see that. I could see that.
If it is, Fennec's role may be on part of be on the part of the Shadow Collective and just waiting out to see who is going to be the winner of this kind of battle royale of maniacs, and then kind of influencing that person or people to go, look, let's just work with the Shadow Collective that I've been a part of for a long time. So I think there could be something there. The part of the reason, though, Josh, that I'm not sold on the Pikes, and hear me out really quickly. So we had the Mos Vespa gang, right? Chasing down the mayor's assistant, and so
that was a fun scene, by the way.
Yeah, I thought that was I've seen some criticisms of it being like kind of a slow chase and this and that, and it's like, yeah, but it's like a brand new gang of people who don't look that experienced, and then you've got the mayor's like secretary or assistant or whatever he is, that's like, he's not like a race car driver, like he's not a pod racer, right? Like, so yeah, it's gonna look. And I think Boba Fett was testing the Vespa gang the whole time, because he's just flying over top of this. Like, he didn't need them to chase that dude down, but when they get him, it takes all of 5 seconds for him to give up the Pikes. Now, if the Pikes were truly in charge, if they were truly the big bad, it's one of those situations that we've seen in every movie where they're like, I can't tell you, I'm dead if I tell you.
Right.
This guy don't care. He's just like, I'm just going to give you a name immediately. You can't trust that. And so, like, I think that the twins going like, hey, there's another syndicate, go talk to the mayor. The mayor's guy going like, oh yeah, it's definitely the Pikes. Like, it feels like too much of a misdirection. Just like when they had the assassin who is never supposed to talk and immediately gives up the mayor, who did not hire him apparently. It just feels like it's a misdirect, and it's just too easy. Slow speed chase followed by immediate confession doesn't fit with me to be like, yes, we've got the right people, or species, I should say. I don't think they're people.
Yeah, I can't wait for chapter 4 now, because we're throwing a lot out there.
Yeah.
And we need to see what we are thinking becomes true, because we are at the halfway point of this series, and we're in Act 2. I think Act 1 is clearly done, and chapters 4 and 5 are going to serve as Act 2, and chapters 6 and 7 are going to serve as Act 3. I can't wait, because we're throwing a lot out there and we're going down the rabbit hole in some paths, but I just need to see on how it unfolds in chapter 4. But I am excited about this direction, because, and I do believe this, that Boba Fett, he's not done with this series. I could see Boba Fett, the character, be involved in other series and being part of, if we ever do get it, and I think we will, some type of Avengers and, assemble type of Star Wars movie of all these Disney Plus Star Wars shows. We're going to get this mega blockbuster movie. And then you and I can have a podcast when that happens in, 4 to 5 years of, is this the attempt to completely wipe out the last 3 of the Skywalker saga? And yes, I think it is an attempt.
So let me ask you, Josh, wouldn't it be fun if the end battle there, and instead of Avengers style, where you've got good guys versus bad guys, you have Thrawn versus the Mandalorians with the Shadow Collective, an uneasy alliance of those two, because then it, let's say they get rid of Thrawn, it still leaves you so much of like, how is this going to work? And then 100 more series. Disney knows how to make money, so I think that they would. I think they'd be in on that.
So again, they're partners. It's not much of an alliance. An alliance would suggest, if you get in trouble, we will back you up.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
They are partners. If you get in trouble, that's your problem. And if you die, we will accept whoever replaces you.
I like that. I like that. So I'm excited for the next episode. I think we could end it here for this week. A lot of great stuff there, Josh, and I think
thank you everyone watching.
We've both pushed each other as of the commenters into a ton of different conspiracy theories and ideas that could happen coming up, and I'm excited for really any of them. Just as long as more Danny Trejo. Give me more Danny Trejo for the rest of the series. And damn it, Boba Fett has to ride that Rancor. Yes. He just asked. He has to. It has to happen.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
All right. Well, thanks, Josh. Thanks for jumping on. And thanks, everyone, for checking it out. And we'll talk to you next week.